Accessing library computer data.
Out there are no saints. Just people.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Continuing our run through of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Right now we're up to the episode called Change of Heart. 16th episode of the 6th season, aired on March 4th, 1998. Written by Ronald D. Moore, directed by David Livingston. In this episode, on a mission to recover a Federation informant on the Dominion world of Sukara, Dax is injured, and Worf must choose between completing the mission or saving his wife. Meanwhile, O'Brien enlists Bashir's help to defeat Quark in a game of Tongo. We're joined by Clay. Clay, how are you?
Good. Is this the first time we see Worf's action figure collection that he keeps in his room?
Oh, does he have something? I didn't notice. I was distracted by his hair and pajamas, I think, if there was something else going on.
He's over there praying to Jobu. It looked like he opened up this little his little case, and there was just like a Worf action. You know how, remember in Spaceballs how they have the action figure of yogurt?
Yep.
And he's like there holding it. It was kind of like that. It was almost like he opened up this little case, and inside was a little Worf action figure that he was praying to.
His it must be Kalos or something, but it's his Worf menagerie of goods and items that he enjoys looking at, except for when he's looking at his wife naked, I suppose would be the other.
Very limited edition he got from San Diego Comic-Con one year.
Right. So. It's got the number on the bottom. This is the first Wharf and Dax episode since they got married, I think, that's focused on the two of them. So we're back to Wharf and Dax. We are back to rescuing informants from deep within Dominion space. I guess we'll take a break. We're going to play an audio clip, and then me and Clay are going to come back, and we're going to break down Change of Heart.
The Saren's dead. Starfleet intelligence intercepted a transmission saying that you'd been killed trying to re-enter the base at Sukara. Could you have made the rendezvous?
Yes.
But yet you turned back to save Jadzia.
Yes.
Were you aware that the information that man had could have saved millions of lives?
Yes.
So what happened?
You may not understand.
Try me, sir.
You were at my wedding. You heard the story of the first two Klingon hearts and how nothing could stand against them, and how they even destroyed the gods that had created them. I've heard that story since I was a boy, but I never understood it. I mean, really understood it. Until I was standing in the jungle with my heart pounding in my chest, and I found that even I could not stand against my own heart. I had to go back. And it did not matter what Starfleet thought or what the consequences were. She was my wife, and I could not leave her.
As your captain, it is my duty to inform you that you made the wrong choice.
I thought I'd open this, Clay, with something that I thought was kind of it's something that's not even really important to the episode, but I think is kind of an instructive lesson in how to make TV or film, I think. We had that episode in the first season, The Move Along Home, where the characters are stuck into that virtual reality world while Quark is playing a game on the station, and his choices are affecting the characters who are inside the game.
Right.
That we talked about how terrible that game was because you could not understand what was going on. The episode is terrible in general, but like Quark's game doesn't make any sense and nothing really works. I will say that Tongo is a pretty effective nonsense game in terms of these kinds of episodes, I think. It's well designed in this there's like a visual appealingness to the nature of spinning the wheel and the clinking, and they throw the things into the middle and they lay down their cards. It's for like a nonsense goofball game that exists only to sort of heighten the antagonism between players. I thought it's a pretty good design thing. It had me thinking that Star Trek does that fairly well, because 3D chess, I think, is another example of a good design in that way. And I think 3D chess is actually like a perfect TNG game, while Tongo is a pretty good game for the DS9 stories that they tell. I just thought that was kind of a neat thing to notice or think about.
Yeah, the key, I feel like the key to making a fake game is to have a lot of business that's being done while playing the game, and having like rules or segments that you say out loud. So it sounds like it's a rule of the game that everybody knows, but the viewers has no idea what you're talking about.
Right.
Did you ever watch New Girl?
No.
So New Girl, they had a game called I think it was called True American, that they would play. It was like this insane drinking game that they would play. but they never once over the course of like 7 seasons or however many seasons that was on, explained the rules. You just cut in at different points with them playing it, where it's like they'll be standing on a couch and have to jump over to a chair while wearing like a hat on and yell like Eleanor Roosevelt or something like that.
Yeah, right.
And it was just completely random, but it felt like, you were watching a real ridiculous drinking game, because it was someone has the rules to a True American, or someone has the rules to Tongo. They or at least enough of the rules where you can write a scene with it and make it seem believable.
Right. The rules kind of like enhance the story in a way where, the scene here is Quark and Bashir playing off each other, where Quark is antagonizing him, but you can see through their betting how it's impacting each of the characters, and it's just a neat little. It's good in a way that the game like Move Along Home was not good, because that was just random nonsense that was happening. Here,
yes.
It feeds into the narrative, and I think it's just like it's a well-designed, silly game that they came up with, and it's also perfectly Ferengi. I think like just the terminology they use, and they're going to like margin or index the margin and things like that. It's a very mercantile game, or like businessy game, that I think the Ferengi would actually be good at. So it's an interesting thing that they did with them.
Yeah, it did seem like the game was Tongo was basically Ferengi for filling out like a mortgage loan application.
Right. Yep.
Based on the stuff that they were saying anyway.
Negotiate that point, and now that the Fed has cut our interest rates, we need to refi at this point. Get your refinance options in. Let's talk about Change of Heart. It's Wharf and Dax, and what I think is a pretty good episode. I like this one. I think that I'll throw it to you after just saying that we had a couple episodes in a row of the past one where we were kind of wondering whether or not the quality was good, or if we were just kind of reacting to being tired of non-serialized adventures in this season or series, because we're getting towards the end and you kind of like, oh, it feels like we're wasting time and wasting air going through these. But I think that this episode shows that to me, the problem with the previous 2 episodes is that those previous ones did not do what this show does well, which is the character work between people. And I think that it's not that the concepts or whatever can't work. It's because they don't put in very interesting or like effective or personalized character work like they do in here. And I thought this one, even though it's not really that exciting of an episode, I think it's really just so much better than the previous ones we've seen, because it's dealing with the characters and moving away from sci-fi episodes like Shrinking and stuff like that, which I don't think the show does particularly well, but this is what this show does well.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I kind of felt like it was actually in line with those previous 2. I do think it's better for the reasons that you're saying. Because, what was missing from those other 2 was any sort of real character stuff, which this one is almost entirely character stuff. My issue with it, though, is that ultimately I didn't feel like there was any change in the characters. Ironic giving the title of the episode. Because when Dax and Worf left for the mission, they weren't really at odds about anything. They bickering about the honeymoon and stuff, but there was no tension between them really. And at the end, they are more or less in the same place and they love each other and stuff. And I know that the turn is supposed to be that Worf chooses her over the mission or whatever, but I don't know. I just felt like there wasn't, for the story that they were telling, I didn't feel like there was enough stress on them, on their relationship, or from the situation they were in. Mm-hmm. And they didn't come up, because I was waiting for the punch at the end. When they had the scene at the end, I thought Dax was gonna be like, no, you absolutely should not have done that. I thought she was gonna like chew him out or something. And so to put some sort of strain on the relationship, because there wasn't really much of a strain for the rest of it, there's just, there's no more strain than would be if you were lost in the woods with your significant other. Mm-hmm. It's going to get kind of hairy there. But yeah, I thought it was good. I thought it was an interesting Worf episode, and really it does show you how much he has changed. Maybe that's the thing. It shows you how much he has changed in that I don't think TNG Worf would necessarily have done what he does here.
Yep.
But yeah, I could have gone with a little bit more stress on the relationship, or at least external stress or something, instead of them just walking through the woods. I don't know. They need a little bit more for me.
Yeah, I would have. I think that my counterpoint to that would be the conflict that they go through here is not about their relationship. It's about Worf's change of heart in terms of what he considers to be important at this point.
Sure.
And so I think that the stress between those two, I think it's fairly effective because they are getting along for this in a good portion of it. And I think that the writers do something here which is completely at odds with how they write the O'Briens, where Dax and Worf actually talk to each other in a way that feels like a real relationship with each other.
Yes, yeah.
They're very good at poking fun at each other in a way that is just tiptoeing the line of actually being offensive to each other, which I think is really good. And I think that Worf has some really good lines and jokes in this episode. He's settled into it's that thing that happened at the end of the last episode where he's now becoming a character who plays off of his perception of his old self, and jokes around in kind of new ways. But I think that it works because if I was to agree with your point, I think that the problem would be is that Worf does not open the episode with a kind of career focus. So a lot of this depends on you knowing that Worf would be all about the mission, and his Klingon honor depends on completing the mission and doing what he's supposed to do. And the change there would be he flips it. However, I think I appreciate the subtlety of you need to know the character to realize how big of a change this was for him. Even though I think there's another counterpoint that he hasn't really moved away from following his duty. It's just that his duty has changed. So he's still fundamentally the same character who believes in like honor and doing the right thing. It's just that he now has this variable in his life where doing the right thing is no longer what it used to be 99% of the time. Yeah,
I would agree. Yeah, I think having a little bit more about the career stuff at the beginning could have gone a long way. Because I do appreciate what you're saying about the subtleties of it, but it's one of those things where it's like, for as subtle as they are in this episode, they which you can chalk up to being like, oh well, they're playing off of what people know about the character, and people who have been watching the show, blah 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 blah. There has been 99,000 times where they have just laid you over the head with something because of the nature of how the TV worked back then, and you've got to have some frame of reference if you have never watched the show or if you've been out of the loop for a while.
Yeah.
So I hesitate to give them full marks for subtlety because it doesn't seem like it's something that they normally do.
Sure.
And also just, I don't know. I think having a little bit more to indicate what his, his level of focus is at the beginning, I think makes it a bit stronger for me, just because you get more of an immediate sense of where his mind is at. I mean, it doesn't have to be a ton of, they don't have to be arguing about it or whatever, but they're, just enough to make that change at the end feel clear that what he's doing is, oh, okay, he's really sacrificing everything for her. Because I was a little surprised at the scene at the end where Sisko's chewing him out, that he wasn't like a little bit more concerned about the fact that he had just potentially caused the death of millions of people.
Who's more upset, Sisko or Worf?
Worf.
Okay.
Worf.
Yeah.
Because Sisko's like, the information that guy had could have saved the lives of millions of people, and Worf's like, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, okay. I get it.
Well,
I get what's going on.
It's not like those millions of people died, I guess. Like Sisko's talking about it in the sort of like future possible sense. So
true.
I guess it might not land as heavy as if Worf was doing like a trolley problem where he's like save Dax or kill a million people. He doesn't make that choice. He just kind of he doesn't not kill a million people, I guess would be the way. So I understand him being a little bit not flippant, but it not sinking in or not being as heavy at that point. And I think that would have been I think that's actually the worst choice if they set it up like a trolley problem and Worf has to pull a switch. Yeah. So I like it better this way.
Yeah, I did like at the end, though, that Sisko at least took a little bit of responsibility and was like, all right, well, at the very least, from this point on, I'm not sending you both on missions together.
TNG had a whole episode about this called Lessons, where Picard falls in love and he has to send his new lover off on a dangerous mission and she almost dies. And then the end of the episode is he kicks her off the ship because he can't deal with it anymore.
Yeah.
This is that. And you'd think that I think this is potentially another solution to your problem here. I think that if these two are supposed to go off on this mission together, a good way to show Worf's dedication to his career is not to have them called in by Kira, but for Worf to volunteer them to do it.
Yeah, that would be good too. Yeah.
Because then I think that maybe Dax is hesitant to do it or something, but Worf is like, we have to do this because this is the right thing to do and we're going to save 1 million lives. And then you see that he is career driven and for this sort of like ending the war or whatever. And then his ultimate choice has to completely do a 180 on what he said earlier.
Yeah. You know, it's funny that military institutions have to keep learning the same lesson because, you know, that's the whole plot basically of Saving Private Ryan is that, you know, they stopped putting brothers together because entire families were getting killed.
Yeah. Yep.
And I mean, you'd think they also did that in the First World War, which is where you'd think they would have made the biggest note about this, where they originally people used to back in the earlier days of the war when it was still kind of like the cool thing to go off and, you know, fight Jerry or whatever. Entire towns worth of young men would go and sign up together and they would end up in these like divisions or brigades or whatever that were named by their town because it was all people from the same town.
Yep.
So when you started having these battles where thousands or tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of people were getting killed at a time, you would have these instances where an entire town's worth of young men were all killed at the same time. So you would just an entire town basically just wiped off the face of the planet.
Right.
So you would think after that it would be like asterisk, make sure we spread these people out so we're not just destroying entire towns.
Randomized trials, I think, is the best way to go about things. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, it's another criticism of we talked about it a little bit, but the O'Brien as an undercover agent episode, like O'Brien as the man with a family, a wife and child, is not the agent that you send in on these missions. I don't think like you give someone who doesn't have something that can be used against him would be the way to go. Not the guy with a family back home.
It would have saved us at least 2 hours worth of cheesy melodrama in Pearl Harbor if they had just split those brothers up.
Yep.
Which I will say, I will go to bat for Pearl Harbor. The action scenes in Pearl Harbor, fantastic.
Is
the
it
attack scene? It's Ben Affleck and Josh Hartnett.
Oh, that's right. It's Josh Hartnett. It's not Casey.
Yeah, okay. The stuff that's not story related or, you know, love story related in that movie, A+.
Yeah.
Everything else, which is about 85% of the movie, is complete garbage.
I just have an image of Ben Affleck not wearing a Batman costume on a turret spinning around, basically. Like it's a very Batman-esque thing. I think he's on a turret at some point in that movie, isn't he? While the planes are flying over.
He wears a lot of white tank tops in that movie.
Okay, good.
Period appropriate high pants and white tank tops.
That was bad Affleck period, right? That was his down period, I think, right? With near Gigli and stuff. I think it was in that era.
Yeah, that was in his first major push to be like a star. Yeah, not great.
Let me see. So,
excuse me.
The one thing, the thing that I think that they could actually have fixed with the, I have one bit of annoyance with the Wharf and Dax thing, which is as much as they are fantastic together, I think at this point in the kind of needling each other and the, I like Dax's line of he's the funny one when she's talking to the Cardassian. That's all very good. I really like the script for this one. I think it works well. I do think that Dax becomes a bit too much of the I'm going to joke around while dying character later on, where Worf's like, Jesus, like you're almost dead. Like you're knocking on death's door, and she's like, I'm going to get a second opinion. As she's just like there. It's like, it's like, can you guys start talking realistically to each other? I mean, they're the kind of characters that should talk openly with each other. They do end it that way. I think it goes on in the jungle a little bit too long, where she's trying to put on a brave face, and it does end where she tries to stand up, and I think that it's super effective that she's crying when he leaves at the end. But outside of that, it's a very minor quibble, but I think they do like 2 interactions too many of her being a lighthearted jokester while dying.
Yeah, they're not quite at Monty Python territory, but they're
Tis but a scratch.
Close.
Yeah.
I was thinking about what you said about instead of having Kira send them down, to have them volunteer. And I think that would have gone a long way, actually, for me, because the other thing that I kind of felt about it was I liked all the stuff in the cold open. I think Dorn is getting really good at his comic timing with Worf. When he and O'Brien are watching the Tonga game, and O'Brien's like, "Do you even know how this game is played?" And he's just, No, I don't." That was great. And, you get to see the stuff with him and Dax, and praying to Jobu and whatnot. But the actual end of the cold open is Kira saying, "You guys need to go on this mission," and I didn't find that super effective. I thought it was kind of a dud of a cold open.
Oh, okay.
Because I like my cold opens to have a bit of a hook to them, and I didn't really find that to be much of a hook, because it was just like, here's a mission.
Here's a Star Trek episode, right?
Yeah, here's a Star Trek episode. But if they had been in that situation where Kira calls them in and says blah blah blah, and Worf is like, we will take this mission, that kind of thing, and Dax shoots him a look or something,
right? Because they're supposed to go on honeymoon, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like something like that. That I think would have been perfect. But as it stands, it fell a little flat for me in the cold open, and I think what you're saying would have gone a long way to fixing it.
What do you think about the B plot here between these the Bashir, O'Brien, and Quark playing Tonga with each other? I'm conflicted about this. I don't know what to think.
So did Bashir used to have the hots for Dax?
Are you being sarcastic, or is that like a real?
No, I completely forget.
He did. He spent the first 3 seasons chasing her.
Really?
Yeah.
Man, none of this shit sticks in my head.
Yeah.
Because when that was happening, I was like, I don't remember this at all. I don't remember him holding a torch for her in any way.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, maybe because they turned him into such a hound that it just all kind of runs together. But specifically Dax, I don't remember that at all.
He had his whole thing with Lita in between and stuff like that. So he's had relationships in between, but his early characterization was he's the doctor and he wants to fuck Dax. That's how he was written. Yeah.
So that threw me for a loop a little bit, which I guess, this is why the subtleties of long-standing character stuff don't always work for the better. Even with someone who's been watching the show.
You're like, has Worf ever wanted to maintain his honor? Is that something this character is all about? I don't remember any of this.
Worf keeps talking about his brother and his dad. Have we ever met them? But yeah, the B plot itself, I thought it was okay. I liked it for the element of Quark getting one over on Bashir.
Quark's very good. Quark's very good in this one. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I thought that stuff was good. It ultimately, it's one of those B plots where, I mean, does this come back? Does he start lusting after Dax again?
He does. Yes. A little. Yes. Okay. Yes, he does.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I was thinking it would be, I like it when the B plots are tied a little more thematically to everything else that's going on. And maybe this was, I don't know.
I think it actually is. I'm super conflicted because this, to me, I could see a lot of listeners saying, you normally complain about these B plots that kind of happen and they just seem to fill time and then they end and there's no real resolution to what's going on. And I think structurally that's what this is. However, I think it thematically matches because it's about Bashir realizing that he's lost Dax and Worf is not going to lose Dax. So even though they're not talking about it, it's about, they both share the same theme of losing Dax potentially. Okay. And one of them is about it being over. And then Worf decides it's not going to be over for him and he continues on with it. I like it a lot just because as much shit as grief as I give Colm Meaney and stuff, like they work. The characterization writing here from the script from Ron Moore just works for these characters.
Yeah.
I think Quark is fantastic. I think I like this version of O'Brien, which is kind of grumpy, obsessive O'Brien.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think Bashir as the kind of go along with it, and he wants to play on the holosuite with O'Brien, but then he's going to go with his friend and do this. I think it all really works, and I think that the Tongo works with Quark irritating Bashir. They lose, all that money's gone. It doesn't really wrap up or anything, but I think it's a light enough plot where I don't need that resolution, and I think it thematically ties in well enough.
Yeah. I think Bashir and O'Brien always work well together. It's been a while since we've had a hijinks episode with them.
Yeah. I like that O'Brien can't pick up the rules to the game, and he's looking through the rule book as they're playing with each other. He's like, "What? Index the margin? What does that mean?"
Yeah. That reminded me of any time any of our friends play board games.
Yes, it's a very accurate representation.
Yeah, where it's like I don't even ask to play anymore because it's just like, sure, do you have 45 minutes to learn the rules to this game? And it's like I do not want to do that. And it ends up being me playing and then going, okay, so what do I do now? You do this. Okay. Now what?
Little help.
And
little help.
Yeah, that gets a little tiring, I assume, from everybody else's standpoint. Which is probably why they kicked me out of the D&D group. Anyway.
It's a lot of rules to remember. It's all complicated jargon, as O'Brien tells us here, where you got to learn the terminology and then the rule that relates to the terminology.
Yes. But yeah, I thought it was fun. I like seeing, the one thing I might change, unless I'm remembering it incorrectly, is I might have made Bashir a little more cocky about it, because O'Brien has to talk him into it a little bit, and he's like, well, I don't know, and blah, 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 blah. But if Bashir had been like, oh, I can beat him, that
I can count cards, like believing in his ability to play that game a little bit more than he does, yeah.
Yeah, like if they had switched it a little bit where it was... Because O'Brien is the one pushing for Bashir to do it. If they had switched... And Bashir is kind of like hemming and hawing and about it. If they had switched that so it was... Bashir trying to help O'Brien learn how to play, and then Bashir's like, you know what? I can beat this guy. Let me do it. And then O'Brien saying, Quark has won 200 games. He's never been beaten. It's not as easy as you think it is, despite how genetically altered your intelligence might be. And Bashir's to be like, how hard can it be? It's cards, blah 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 blah. That kind of thing.
Yeah. It's I think that's another way that it ties in thematically, because Bashir is approaching it from a statistical way of playing the game, which is kind of like it's always better to save 1 million lives than to save one. But Quark wins by playing on his emotions of the game as opposed to the actual game. So I think it's actually a really nice metaphor. I think it works really well between the two things, the A and the B plot.
Yeah, now that you say it that way, I would agree with you. Yeah, I think it works.
Anything else we have to say about this? What do you? I guess we'll just wrap it up with a general. What do you think about the Wharf and Dax relationship at this point? They haven't really focused on it because they just got married 10 episodes ago or something like that. But I think it's like one of the better relationships that Star Trek is like romantic relationships. They don't do many of them, but I think it stands out as being really effective. I think that Terry Farrell is in a good way in these scenes with Michael Dorn. She's allowed to play a version of the character that I think she is best at and best suited for, and I think it works really well for both of them.
Yeah, I would agree. They're one of those relationships where I'm glad that they are not front and center, because the problem with television relationships is when you put two characters together, ultimately they become more boring. Or at least that's how they're perceived by the people creating the show. Yeah. So
also in real life, that's a real life trait where, especially for when you're younger, when people get together, they're like, oh, they're boring now.
Yeah. So ultimately, the writers immediately start thinking of ways to break them up. I think, not having watched the show, but having heard enough about it, I feel like the ultimate example of that is probably Friends, where didn't they all end up interchanging with each other more or less through the course of however many seasons they're on?
After you do 11 seasons of a relationship show, you kind of, It's the 90210 thing too. They all just start dating each other. There's no one else exists in this universe except for them.
Yeah. So I'm glad that Dax and Worf are out of the spotlight enough where you can just kind of let them kind of have a happy ending for more or less, where you could still do relationship stuff with them, but they're not so front and center that you feel a need to just shatter their relationship as soon as it happens. And you feel good about it too, because you want a couple people to be happy. It's like the Jim and Pam thing on The Office. Mm-hmm. When they got together, it's like if they had broken Jim and Pam up, that would have I think everybody who watched that show would have just shattered into 1,000 pieces. And it would have turned on the show. Absolutely. And it never would have come back.
Yeah.
So sometimes you just want these characters to have a relationship, and you can watch them doing relationship stuff without everything having to be like, ooh, will they break up? It doesn't have to be Sam and Diane all the time.
Yeah, that's true. It's not about the tenuousness of their relationship at this point. It's more about their interactions with each other as they're a couple. And I really just have to stress, they work on every level that the O'Briens don't work for whatever reason. It's just it feels like it's a real thing here, and I think that the writers have matured, as obviously it's later than TNG, but TNG's romance always felt like soap opera stilted. It felt like just hello, lover, and then you hold each other in that half embrace as you're a foot apart from each other and looking at each other's eyes. This feels like they actually exist in a way that I think is it shows the maturity of the writers are getting older. They're not early 20s anymore at this point. They're they're in their 30s or whatever, or late 20s. And I think that it's just coming together.
It's not Riker breathlessly saying, "Anzadi, we can never be together," or whatever the fuck that, and holding her close and then having to split apart and dramatically.
How do you remember Imzadi, but you don't remember that Bashir had the hots for Dax? That is a strange...
Because that's the Anzadi thing is a core tenet of the show. Apparently, clearly, Bashir being into Dax was just like a summer camp thing for 3 seasons.
Interesting.
I also think that a realistic relationship is not the norm in most shows. Everything. Most show relationships end up having to be tempestuous, just like I said, to keep the interest up and the drama going.
Yeah.
So
even
that
just at a
happens
story level, you need some conflict between them. Yeah.
And so that happens so often that having two characters who are more or less in a normal relationship becomes novel.
Yeah.
And especially in something like Star Trek, where for the most part they've never really been able to pull that off.
Yeah.
Doing it makes the world feel more authentic.
Yeah,
to see two characters who are actually.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just. It makes the world that you're supposed to be envisioning this future, and the people who live in it, and it's supposed to be authentic. Having a relationship that is a normal relationship goes a long way to making that seem authentic, and they managed to do it. It's just interesting that they managed to do it with these two kind of weird characters,
conflict-riddled characters.
Conflict-riddled characters that aren't anybody's first choice to put together at the beginning of the show. But your previously established canon normal relationship of O'Brien and his wife is just too normal, I guess.
Yes,
I don't know how you would describe it. Yeah,
it is too normal. There's a normal relationship has a slight bit of conflict in it. It's not the O'Briens have zero conflict, mostly because O'Brien does not hang out with his family, so you never see anything of them. Yeah. But they are just like a cardboard cutout of a family for him. They exist only to make him be the character who has a family. It's not like the show actually cares about them at all.
Yeah.
And this is different because they give as good as they get with it, and it feels like each of them are totally true characters. That was the other point to just finish. It was we had said the same about Jake Sisko's relationship with Ben Sisko. It's not the angsty teen thing. They get along enough where it feels like it could actually be a realistic portrayal of father and son. They're not constantly oh, Dad, get off my space station, stuff like that.
Yeah. The O'Brien relationship is dying for the the sequence from Heat where O'Brien comes home and Keiko's just slept with Xander Berkeley, who's awkwardly watching TV. And then they argue about how O'Brien is his whole job. And then he yells at Xander Berkeley for not being able to watch the TV and tell him to sit down. I went to see Heat last night, so it's on my mind. That movie's great.
Yeah, and Worf, there was nothing that there is one thing that Worf can't just drop when he feels the heat coming around the corner, I guess is what this one tells us.
She got a great ass.
So let's take a break.
All the way up it.
We're going to play an audio clip. Me and Clay will come back. We'll read some patron thoughts.
Can you just play clips from Heat instead?
Sure. I'll see if I can do that. We'll come back. We'll do patron thoughts and our thoughts, and then we will wrap up our discussion of Change of Heart.
Hey. I know you.
We have met.
Oh, you're joking again. That's a good sign. Did you make the rendezvous?
No. I could not leave you there. Not for Lazarin, not for the mission, not for anything else.
Lazarin?
Dead.
Are you in trouble?
I've been in trouble before.
I'm sorry. I should have kept going.
You have nothing to be sorry about.
I know how much your career means to you.
You come first. Before career, before duty, before anything. I do not regret what I did. And I would do it again.
Okay, so if you want to support the show, the best way to do that is patreon.com/the Pensky File. A couple dollars a month, you get extra stuff. We usually give away podcasts and things like that. Exclusive podcasts that you can only get on the Patreon. So patreon.com/the Pensky File. Our Captain tier supporters also get a shout out. So special thanks go to Andrew Churlog, Ben Douglas, Bradley Killens, Captain Quark, Cardinal Doomsday, Christian Pouch, David K, Dwayne Hackett, Eric Johnson, Yarpy, Joint Mango, Kevin Reyes, Kyle Barrett, Matt Cutler, Matt Ross, Mike Burnett, Nathan Elliott, Neil Brennan, Nick Sergi, Robert Cummins, Russell Elledge, Samuel Custer, Grim Santo, Sean Spinobi, Tark Latif, and Will Yates. Thank you very much, guys, for supporting the show. Much appreciated. Let's go to patron thoughts now. If you're a patron, you get to leave your thoughts on upcoming episodes, and we read them. So, first one here. Let me Control F and find myself. Zam Nuclear Vessel says, Change of Heart. Possibly my favorite all-around episode for Wharf and Dax. Too bad that it's also got Quark stirring Bashir's Dax obsession back to life. That's an answer.
How come everybody knew about this but me?
Samuel S. says, a good 30-minute episode trapped inside of a 45-minute show. Seriously, if you put more fluff in this episode, it would become a pillow. The Wharf and Dax storyline is interesting and engaging, but the B-plot of O'Brien trying to get Bashir to beat Quark goes nowhere, and it just ends halfway through the show. It's obvious the writers realized that after they finished the script that they still had 15 minutes to kill, 3 out of 5. Cardinal Doomsday, the boring one with Dax and Worf in the jungle. Dax is more annoyingly flippant than usual. In the B-plot, O'Brien and Bashir feel intimidated by Quark, for fuck's sake. 2 out of 5. Jay Ayers.
Hold on 1 second.
Sure.
Sorry, I thought I was going to sneeze and I didn't want to ruin it.
I don't even know if I'm going to cut that out. I'll try to remember. 37 minutes. Jay Ayers. Change of Heart. Is Dax the only person who sleeps naked, and why is Worf completely dressed when he wakes up? Average episode for the most part, with a mediocre B-plot of O'Brien, Bashir, and Quark.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Which one of those is the weird one for him?
If Dax is naked or Worf is dressed?
Yeah. Or are they both weird?
I
feel like you can, depending on how you read that, because you could be like, is Dax the only one who sleeps naked? As in that's just what everybody should do.
I think he means in terms of the show, I guess. We don't get a lot of sleepwear, like visuals, I guess. So, yeah. I mean, it was...
listen, the internet's a big place. I'm sure if you look probably not even that hard, you could probably find some stories about what everybody else is wearing and not wearing to bed.
Her spots go all the way. I mean, it is a very un-Star Trek-y amount of sexiness that they did there with the, I even like the shot of Worf pulling the blankets off and her feet are in frame as she's there. Like, that's kind of, it's just charming stuff like that. I would imagine that the computers are so sensitive that you would probably sleep naked because it has like the ideal computer temperature going in your room at that point, but who knows?
Interesting.
Average episode for the most part, with a mediocre B-plot of O'Brien, Bashir, and Quark. It's saved in the end by Worf and Sisko's meeting over the failed mission. Sisko damning Worf's actions and his career is in tatters, but it ties up the beginning of the episode. Worf would rather lose with Dax than win with someone else. It's a good point. Next one. Will Yates, change of heart. ... Great last scene, I guess. I don't like all the negativity about this episode, guys. This is unappealing to me. Matt Ross says, change of heart. I think this is actually well done. From the side story of the Tongo game and Bashir's unrequited love, a frustration of having an injured spouse in your own mission. The frustration, sorry. Probably why that was a bad idea to send the married couple together on a deadly mission. The emotion expressed seemed genuine, and the weight of duty versus love was well shown on the mission. The fact Worf has a pole up his ass and that Nadia seems to make him... not Jadzia, I'd assume that's an autocorrect. The Jadzia seems to make him less stiff as well expressed. You have to look past the ridiculous nature of sending the strategic ops officer of a base with his wife and the chief science officer. Once you do that, it's fine. Not the best or the worst.
Autocorrect, or did we just learn something about Matt that we didn't know before? Is that sort of
Who's Nadia?
Slip?
He's having flashbacks of like a Platoon-esque flashback where Nadia is being left behind. Let me see. He put hearts in there, so I have to do it twice. Kyle Barrett. Change of heart, a decent idea that should have spawned a fairly average episode, but I think Ronald D. Moore's script is fantastic and ameliorates, good word there, the episode. It's still nothing incredible, but I do enjoy the episode quite a bit. And it gave us that Worf facepalm gif, so that's something. I noticed, Clay, you say GIF instead of GIF.
I do. And I don't really care where anybody stands on that.
I just think that the peanut butter is GIF, and that's with a J. So this has got to be GIF.
Sorry, say that again?
Well, the peanut butter is GIF with a J.
Yeah, but I mean, you've also got giraffe, which is a soft G and an I. Mm-hmm. You know, there's plenty of words.
You've also got gorilla, if we're going to go down the animal path. Come on.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I'm talking GI here. There's plenty of soft G I words to back up the reading of saying GIF instead of GIF.
It also gave us that Worf facepalm gif, so that's something. A quick question. While the homoeroticism between Bashir and O'Brien is a bit of a joke in the fandom, if the show were written today where writers are on social media and being bombarded with opinions and fan feedback, plus the greater effort of including gay characters, do you think the writers would seriously consider making them a couple? Let's close with that, actually. I don't want to... Yeah. We'll close with that. I have one more comment. Change of heart, a weak episode and a strong season. This episode finally answers the question, what could go wrong having spouses serve together on a mission? A lot, apparently. One redeeming piece is the realization that there are many in Cardassia who are not happy with the Dominion. That's it. Thank you, patrons, for your thoughts. We'll wrap up with that thing and then do our final thoughts here, Clay. So Kyle says, the homoeroticism between Bashir and O'Brien is a bit of a joke in the fandom, but if the show were written today, where the writers are on social media and being bombarded with fan opinions and feedback, plus the greater effort of including gay characters in a series, do you think the writers would seriously consider making them a couple?
I think yes, and I think it would be the right move. And I don't mean that like, you know, these characters demand to be together or anything like that, but I mean that's something that they've never done on the show before. You know, if you've got O'Brien in a straight marriage and Bashir seemingly a straight dude, and they kind of, you know, space gets lonely, you know.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot of emptiness in space, except for your hearts.
I think that would be really interesting. You know, I think that the problem with something like that, though, is a storyline like that. Can I say this with it equating to the way that they've handled other stuff? Okay, what my feeling is that a storyline like that would be so revolutionary that I feel like it would take up. That's not the way I want to say it.
Are you talking about in terms of DS9, if they'd written it into DS9, or are you talking about a storyline nowadays if they had to start?
Just in general. Okay. Like, I think that sort of storyline feels like it would take up a ton of space.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of stuff going on there. And I'm not saying you can't do it, but I feel like that's going to be really heavy.
I feel it's too complicated for Star Trek. I think
I think they could do it. I think they could do it. I think it would be really interesting to do. It would just really depend on execution because there's so much stuff. There's so many things going on there. It would take a lot of finesse to make that work, I think, and not feel completely ham-fisted.
Yeah, when I say complicated, it's mostly just that if you were to do a service to that feels like a plot thread that has to stretch through like season or multiple seasons.
Yeah,
and it weirdly works in DS9 because it's like, not that this is what they're doing, but like because you see them together so often, it kind of builds that feeling that that's what's going on. I don't think the show, in my opinion, does not believe that these two are interested in each other.
Right.
They just like the pairing of them being stuck together.
Yeah.
And if you were to stick this into something like a Discovery show, even if it was like a good version of a Discovery show, it feels a little bit too, involved for a Star Trek plotline. Like you'd really have to delve into it in a way that it doesn't stick with the Star Trek, like, oh, revelation, and then we do this, and then we go off and do our own thing. It feels like you'd really have to stick with those characters, and I don't know if that's the best thing for a Star Trek show. But I think you can certainly do that in other shows, and it would be much more of a natural fit.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see if they tried to do something like that.
And it's only because the complicating, like, if they were just gay, like Stamets and Culber on Discovery, it's not a problem. But we're talking about, like, O'Brien having a family, like a straight family.
Yes. Yeah. That's got a lot of moving parts.
Right. And if this show is definitely not equipped for it. I think they could do it. I don't know if it's best for Star Trek to do, but I think they certainly could. And I also don't think that the show believes that these two are sexually interested in each other. DS9 doesn't believe that.
That's the entire plot of the show Grace and Frankie. Mm-hmm. So you could just take that show and transplant it to a starship, and there you go.
Yeah, pointy ears on people, and you got Star Trek right there.
Yeah. Jane Fonda, painted green.
On our scale of 1 to 5, Clay, what are you going to give Change of Heart?
I'm going to give it a 3.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, I like things about it, but it didn't really elevate out of that run we've been on of stuff that's just sort of like one-off episodes. And again, I'm trying not to judge the episodic stuff based on my wish that it was all serialized stuff. But yeah, I would say it's a high 3. Because I think there is some really, really great character stuff in it, but overall, it's not one that I think I would come back to.
Yeah, I'll give it a 4. I really like it. I think it just has a script that's actually like about something and sort of interesting and reveals things about our characters in a way that the previous two haven't done that. And I think it was well timed for them to have a show about Dax and Worf in this way.
Also, points taken away for having change of in the title and not involving some sort of mind or body swap.
Yeah. It's really just a change of heart. There's nothing tricky about the title whatsoever.
It's very literal, which, come on.
It's a very literal figurative statement. Let's see here.
He didn't even get like a heart transplant or something. Like Dax is dying there and, she needs a new... honestly, what I thought was going to happen, this is what I thought the episode was going to be. I thought it was going to be, they're on this mission, Dax gets hurt, she's on her deathbed, and in order to save her, the symbiote dies. Yep. And so she gets a new symbiote, and so that changes her personality.
Yeah. And
so what does that mean for their relationship and their marriage now that I guess Dax is dead?
Yeah. Yeah. Now that she's a different person. No, they could have gone that way.
Do they go that way? Does that happen eventually?
I'm not going to say anything, but
that sounds like I'd call that a big yes.
We'll it's not long, so we'll see how things go about that way. But there is a change in their relationship coming up. Let's see.
Is that episode called like a change of
relationship?
Spirits, yeah, change of relationship.
Change of relationship status. That's it, guys. Thank you very much for listening. Social media links are all down below. You can go to the website, check that out. You can go to patreon.com/the Pensky File if you want to support the show there. Clay, do you have anything you want to say?
I do. The Kickstarter for my graphic novel Bloody Hell is currently running right now, and I would like to thank all of you who have donated, because we hit our $12,000 goal in under 7 hours on day one.
Yay, play to plus.
Which is, I not in a million years was I expecting that kind of response. So thank you to everybody who threw in. Now I have all the pressure on me now to actually do a book worthy of this excitement.
Podcast listeners came out strong. I'm happy.
They did. I really appreciate it, guys. It means a lot to me. But the campaign is still up for, another 29 days. Yep. And I'm going to be adding new stuff on there. I just put a bunch of stretch goals on there because, we're actually pushing 15,000 right now, which is crazy. Mm-hmm. Keep on looking. Keep on checking it out. One of the to give you a little inside tip, one of the things I'm putting up maybe next week or the following week is going to be a guest spot, a reward tier for a guest spot on Badass with me and Sean. So if that's something you might be into, if that's enough to get you off the fence, then keep your eyes open for that.
Yeah. Thanks guys.
Again.
Thanks for supporting the Kickstarter. Thank you for being generous, and thank you for supporting this show as well, in addition to Clay's thing. But yeah, it was really really nice to see. It did happen so quick. That's what she said, but it did just because it's been mentioned, but Kickstarters are usually strong opening, strong close. Like you're trying to chase that close at the end to get it done, but it didn't even happen that way. So it's interesting. Yeah,
I was hoping for 25 to 30% on day one, because then at least I would be kind of like funded enough that I had some momentum.
Yeah. People can take it seriously at that point.
Yeah. But once I hit halfway in like 2 hours, I was like, oh, I was not prepared for this.
Well, congratulations. We'll wrap it up there, guys. Check out his Kickstarter. I'll put a link.
You can find that at bloodyhell.com. I should probably tell you where.
That's the easy way. Bloody Hell with one L and hell. So
BLOODYHEL.com.
Yep. Guys, thank you very much for listening. We'll see you next time.